Henderson Luelling. Nice beard. Henderson Luelling on a sex cult in Honduras. Ah, nice. And tonight, I'm going to make my How to Please Everyone apple pie and tell you the story of Henderson Luelling. America, we're a country divided. It seems that half of us want an apple pie filling that is soft and sweet like applesauce, while the other half want tart and crisp like a fall day. And I'm saying, hey America, why don't we just combine the two and make something that we can all enjoy? So today, my How to Please Everyone apple pie. So for this apple pie, we're going to make two fillings. One tart and crisp for all you tart and crisp people, and one applesauce for all you saucy people out there. Now first we're going to cut 12 apples, 6 Granny Smith and 6 Fujis. Granny Smith for the tart and crisp, Fuji for the applesauce sweet. What I like to do is I like to squeeze a couple halves of lemon in the water. This is just going to create a little bit of an acid bath that'll prevent the apples from browning. As always, the recipe's down at the bottom. And like and subscribe. This is a Jack Rose cocktail. I'll tell that story on another day. Today, I'm going to tell you about Henderson Luelling, a man who got kicked out of Iowa for freeing slaves, a man who made millions growing apples in Oregon, only to lose it all on a sex cult in Honduras. This is a true story. First, we gotta have a drink. The year is 1845. The place, Salem, Iowa. And Henderson Luelling is 36 years old, and he's doing pretty well for himself. He and his wife and their 8 children live in a 2-story stone house right on the outskirts of town. And he's got a small orchard out back where he sells fruit and fruit trees to the local townspeople. However, Luelling has a bit of a slave problem. Slaves from Missouri keep coming into his property and hiding out on their way to freedom. And the law said at the time that if you found a Missouri slave on your property, even though it was in Iowa, and Iowa was a free state, you had to send them back to Missouri where they came from. And this just didn't sit well for Luelling's, abolitionist Quaker values. And he's like, I have to do more. Henderson Luelling. So he cuts a hole in his kitchen floor and builds a small hatch into the crawl space with stairs leading down to tunnels. So the next time a posse rolls into town looking for slaves, they're underneath Luelling's crawl space eating apples. The Luelling house becomes one of the first stops in the Underground Railroad of Iowa, and Luelling becomes a bit radicalized. He's like telling his neighbors, you gotta do more. Free the slaves. You gotta do more to free the slaves. Build a hatch. I built a hatch. Come on. You gotta go free the slaves. You gotta find a way to free the slaves. Build that hatch. Build a hatch. Build a hatch. And his neighbors are like, you're crazy. Stop telling us to build hatches, Eventually they become sick and tired of this. They kick him out of the Quaker church. And Luelling's like, what the heck am I gonna do? Henderson Luelling. What am I gonna do? So one day, he's reading the Lewis and Clark journals, and all of a sudden he's like, oh, westward ho, I can take my apple orchard to the Oregon Territory. So Henderson Luelling gets a wagon, fills it up with dirt and 700 tree saplings, and his wife Elizabeth, and their 8 children, and they take the next wagon train to the Oregon country. Well, it goes horribly wrong. He drags the entire wagon train down with all of his dirt and trees, and eventually they're like, Luelling, you have to dump some of your trees. And Luelling's like, I can't, that's my livelihood. Henderson Luelling. So they abandon him somewhere in the Rockies, and he loses half his trees crossing the mountains. But he makes it to the Oregon country. He plants his orchard along the Willamette River, just south of Portland, and from there, the orchard prospered. In 3 years, it sold over 20,000 boxes of fruit every year. One year, it made over $15 million in today's value. Apples on the streets of Portland were selling $1 a piece. That's like $33 in today's value. So, what did Luelling do with his newfound apple fortune? Well, he had a few setbacks. His first wife, Elizabeth, she died while being pregnant with his 10th child. He gets married again. His second wife dies. He gets married a third time. She dies. And distraught, Luelling's like, what the heck am I going to do? And so he decides, I'm going to move to California, where the weather's a little warmer. And so Luelling's in California, and at this point, he gets into spiritualism. He buys a Ouija board and starts talking to his dead wives, with the Ouija board, and he's not really getting the answers that he's looking for. And that's when he meets Dr. Taylor. Now, Dr. Taylor, he's a bit of a huckster. He's an ex-blacksmith who claims to be clairvoyant and specializes in water cures and free love. And Luelling, he's hooked. So Luelling starts banging his way through San Francisco. Henderson Luelling. And Dr. T is giving people water cures and practicing free love and uncontrolled sexuality on the people of San Francisco. And they start to get quite a following. Dr. T had the gift. Dr. T was the man. Dr. T had all the answers. Dr. T, he's not satisfied with the healing properties of the San Francisco Bay. So he tells Luelling, I have a vision. Why don't we go someplace tropical where the warm waters will improve our sexuality and we can live off the land as vegetarians? And Luelling's like, hell yeah, let's do it. Henderson Luelling. Luelling then buys a boat and 50,000 acres in the jungles of Honduras, so Luelling, Dr. T, and their followers can live the utopian life of free love, sex, vegetarianism, and water cures. They call it the Harmonial Brotherhood, and from the start, it doesn't go well. The water is full of cholera, and so people immediately get sick. And it turns out you can't live off of apples alone, and people starve. Within a year, Dr. T disappears, and Luelling, he's left penniless. He has to go back to California with nothing. He tries to get things going with the new orchard, but in 1878, he dies tragically while burning land to plant new trees. They think he had a heart attack, but they found his smoldering body. The obituary said he was partially roasted, his hair and beard singed off. And just like that, the Apple King is dead. Henderson Luelling. We're going to finish slicing the apples and assemble the pie. So we've got all the apples cut. We've got the apples that are going to be the applesauce, and we've got apples that are going to be the Tart and Crisp. First, we're going to drain the apples that we're going to make for applesauce. So to these apples, we're going to add 1 cup of sugar, 1 teaspoon of cinnamon, 2 tablespoons of flour, 2 tablespoons of butter, and then we're going to grate some nutmeg, about a tablespoon of nutmeg. Again, with spices, do at your liking. You could add cardamom if you want, if you like cardamom. If you don't like cinnamon, add less cinnamon. I usually judge it by smell. Go till it's fragrant, until you like it. Try not to grate your fingers or lose the nutmeg. So I found the easiest way to mix it is just use your hands. If you don't like getting your hands dirty, you can use a spoon. Now we've mixed these apples, we need to heat them up until they're soft. There are many ways to do this, but I think the easiest way to do it is just in the microwave. So I'm going to put these in the microwave for about 20 minutes. This pie may be the death of me. It's actually videotaping that's the problem. It's so hard. All right. It's been 20 minutes. The microwave's done. Let's take a look at our applesauce. Be careful when removing this from the microwave because it might be hot. give this a little stir, mashing the apples down. I pulled the bottom pie dough crust out of the refrigerator. It's been about an hour since I made it. It's time to roll it out. I've got a piece of wax paper on the bottom here. Grab the rolling pin, put a little flour on that as well. And again, we're home cooks. It's not going to be perfect. Our goal is to get 2 inches wider than the 9-inch pie pan. Historians say that Luelling's orchard brought more money to the Oregon Territory than all the ships entering the Columbia River. Henderson Luelling. Luelling's orchard really brought Portland out of the shadows of San Francisco. Again, if you've got sections that are just not perfect, you can just kind of pinch them together. Okay, that looks good. So now we are going to attempt to put the pie crust into the pie pan. This is the challenging part. We're just going to flip it and remove the wax paper. You're not a professional pie baker, but that looks pretty good. You just don't want to have any holes in the bottom where the pie could leak through. I'm now going to put this in the freezer while we assemble the top layer. Okay, first I'm going to drain these apples. I'm going to put these apples in a bigger bowl. This is the top layer of the apple pie, the Tart and Crisp. To this, we're going to add 1 cup of sugar, 3 tablespoons of flour, 1 teaspoon of cinnamon, a little salt, and a tablespoon of lemon juice. Mix that to combine. I just like to use my hands. Smells so good. All right, so now we're going to assemble the pie. Henderson Luelling. Now I'm going to start with the applesauce bottom. Now you want to put this mixture in about 1/2 inch from the top. Now we sprinkle about 1 cup of chopped pecans. Now we're going to move on to the final layer, the Tart and Crisp. Now with this layer, you want to get some height. This is a deep dish pie. So I'm going to put it all in. So good. All right, the bowl is empty. There's just a little bit of water left in the bottom of the bowl. You don't need to put that on the pie. Okay, now we're going to put a couple tablespoons of butter on the top. The butter is just going to add flavor and thicken the top layer. Okay, now that the butter's on top, I'm just going to pop this back in the freezer while we roll out the top crust. Don't drop the pie. All right, top crust. Same as before. We're going to roll this out. Flour. Little flour on top. You can also move the wax paper. Okay, now the challenge, putting the top layer of crust onto the pie. Slide it on the top and then remove the wax paper. Okay, what I'm doing is I'm making a quick egg wash. I'm going to use this to seal the edges of the pie, which I probably should have done before I put the pie on, but I'm not perfect. And again, this is just 1 egg with a little water, about 1 tablespoon. Now we're going to pinch the edges. Make little pinchers and pinch all along the perimeter of the 2 crusts. Okay, now we're just going to cut around the edges. You can save this pie dough to make crackers, and I'll show you how to do that later. Now we're going to do an egg wash over the top of the pie. You can be pretty liberal with this. And then I like to sprinkle a little sugar on the top. Now, you need to use a pretty coarse sugar, like a demerara sugar. Regular white sugar just gonna burn the top of the crust. So if you don't have demerara sugar, I would leave it out. And then we need to cut some vent holes. I like to get creative and cut little apple seeds. While the oven is heating up, I'm just gonna pop this in the freezer to cool down for about 10 minutes. Okay, I put the pie in the freezer for about 10 minutes just to set the top crust a little bit more. Now I'm gonna put it in a 350-degree oven for about 50 minutes. I'd check it at 45 minutes and keep it in as long as 60 minutes. What you want is a nice kind of a golden brown or light brown crust to the pie. So here it goes. I put a foil on the cookie sheet, heated that up with the oven. That'll prevent overspillage. Our finished pie. The first slice is always the hardest. This is what you want it to look like. Let's have a taste. So good. The Tart and Crisp, exactly the way you want it. Not 100% cooked down, just a little bit of that chew left, and then you get down through the pecan layer, which is nice and rich, and then you get down to really rich and sweet, creamy applesauce. And the pie crust, flaky. So good. Well, this has been achewstory. Another round. Thanks for watching. See you soon. This is... Oh man, this is fun.
Probably all have a picnic together on 4th of July, and you boys can bring pie.
Yes.
That's right.